Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. Those who have been in a coma. What was it like? I was in medically induced coma for about a week. The coma itself is not much to talk about. There is just a gap in your memory, even from before it happened. I don't even remember the accident that brought me there in the first place. Waking up from it is much different story though. Since I was fully dosed by painkillers and sedatives and whatnot, I was basically high as kite, and since the trauma I suffered was very serious, my brain constructed very stressful, vivid nightmares I remember to this day. Do you think your brain was trying to wake you up? The correct one to wake into. Wow. I'm beginning to suspect that this entire horrible timeline we're living through is just you/Spider Mechanic's traumatic coma dream. I was in a very short coma, 6 days, after a brain hemorrhage. I recall nothing during the coma. I have a fuzzy understanding of my first week or two after waking up, having pieced it together by the stories I was told, and memories of the days leading up to it were temporarily wiped out, though they have since returned. This was over a decade ago, so take this with a grain of salt. My memory in general is imperfect at best. Edit. I should mention that my coma was induced so they could stabilize me and drain the blood via my skull. My mum had the same thing. Unfortunately hers was so severe and she died 5 days into her coma. I'm kind of glad that you don't remember your coma, because I like to think her last moments were having fun with her family, not being scared knowing she was gonna die. I'm sorry for your loss. Edit. Please be respectful in the replies. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry for your loss. I had a motorcycle wreck a few years ago. Someone texting blew a stop sign and 8 ended up T-boning them. Not sure if coma is the correct term, but I was definitely unconscious for 2 days. Honestly just felt like the worst, least refreshing nap in the history of naps. Had the wreck on a Sunday, woke up sometime Tuesday afternoon evening and asked if the bike was okay. It wasn't. I'd love a bike one day, but stories like this always scare me off them. My dad used to live in Vietnam and ride with him mates, and the amount of horror stories has scared the shit out of me. I spent 5 years in SE Asia and honestly Vietnam is the worst traffic I've been in. However, the difference is that people are constantly paying attention to other traffic there. It's extremely rare that some accident happens just because someone didn't see something coming. I also ride a motorbike in the Netherlands, and in a way it's more dangerous, because motorbikes are rare and only for fun, and drivers aren't used to them and literally don't see them because they are not expecting something different than a car. Edit. Traffic in Saigon for your viewing pleasure. YouTube.com link. I currently live in Vietnam, and the fact that I almost never see a wreck amazes me. I see close calls, but these morons never realize how close they came. They get back to rushing around and using their cell phones while driving or motorbiking. Not me, but my dad has described his coma after his car accident. He was pulled up a little too far at a stop sign, and a guy who was speeding and on his phone swerved off the road. So he was in a coma for about 2 months. On my end, it wasn't like the movies. He didn't just wake up miraculously. It was 2 months of steady improvements. One eye opened. Then a few days later his other eye was half open. Then he could wiggle a toe. Then he could move his fingers, etc. On his end, he said he could hear bits and pieces of what was happening around him, but it was like a dream that he couldn't wake up from. When me and my 2 younger siblings would come in and talk to him, his heart rate would go down. When a football game was on and his friends came to sit with him and watch it, the nurses made them turn it off once his team started losing because his heart rate blew up. Edit. He's a fan of the Miami Dolphins, so I guess his HR never fully returned to normal. Edit 2. An award? I've never got an award before. But seriously, thanks for the awards and the stories, guys. I don't know why this is so funny to me. Imagine being in a coma, and your team losing affecting you this much. I feel like there's some comedy gold in there somewhere. There was this story a while back with a similar situation. A Buckeyes fan started showing improvements during a coma when people asked if he liked the Michigan Wolverines. He did not. They reminds me of a meme I saw online one time. It was a text post, so I'll just type it out here. My dad, in a coma. Someone changes the temperature on the thermostat. My dad cracks eyes open. There was a kid named Martin Pistorius who fell into a coma for 12 years, but his mind woke up 2 years into it. However, he was unable to speak or move, and everyone believed he was a vegetable at best. This wasn't the case. His mind was fully there. For over a decade he was mistreated in facilities that played Barney repeats every single day for years without him being able to look away. True mental torture. He was also physically and sexually abused on top of that. At one point he couldn't stop throwing up, so the nurse's tube fed him his own vomit. His parents were unaware of all this and tried adapting the best they could. In some of the lowest moments he remembers his mother telling him she wishes he would just die, yet all he could feel was compassion for how she felt. Eventually someone who cared enough realized he was responsive enough and got him the help he needed, and now he has a wife and kids. Talks like Stephen Hawking and is a computer programmer. Really shows how you can still emerge from the deepest, darkest places of life. His TED Talk. Locked in syndrome. I can't think of anything more terrifying. I've had this happen, but only for about 2 hours. It was extremely strange and terrifying. Eyes open, unable to move limbs or talk, shout, etc. Not a nice feeling. Edit. Whoa. A lot of replies for this comment. Thanks. To those of you who have asked, suggested that this was sleep paralysis. Yes, I believe it was. Although I didn't know the term for it. Wasn't fun, and wouldn't wish it on anyone. Me too. Mine was about 5 hours. I had an allergic reaction to medication. Terrifying. I've never encountered another people who experienced it short term. I was in a coma for 3 days following a serious cycling accident. Medically induced. I woke up with zero recollection of why I was there or what was said while I was out. It is easily the scariest situation I found myself in. But I can't say I remember it. I woke up to my mom and dad in the hospital with me and my body in traction of some sort, and that was way scarier to me. You were actually just really tired. I feel like we've accomplished something here today. r/angry upvote. My wife was in a diabetic coma for 2 weeks when she was in elementary school. She knew her sugar was low. Then all of a sudden she woke up in the hospital with absolutely no idea that any time had passed. Edit. I'm just gonna throw this shit down since this is blowing up. She loved this video. Sugar inhibits our natural ability to time travel. Got it? But only forward. We must find the substance that inhibits reverse time travel. Invert sugar? Got hit by a truck. I was in a coma for 4 days. It felt like a power nap but in the hospital. Edit. I was worried when I woke up. I had no idea where or why I was. I doubt any of us know why we are. Why am I 42? I wasn't in one for long, just under a week. While I was in the coma, I didn't remember a thing. When I came out of it, I just remember hearing my mom yell to the attending, "He's up." Then I woke up with a bunch of white coats in the room. I was super stiff and incredibly confused. Oddly enough, I kept having vivid dreams of myself in the coma after the fact. Still have them to this day. They're almost like an out-of-body experience because I can see myself laying in the bed with people around me. I have those dreams about when I had the swine flu as a kid. I can see myself in my parents' bedroom and everything is a bit purple. Crazy, right? Every time I have one I go back and ask my mom and dad if it was accurate. Some of them are, but others are completely off. I can't remember if it was in Stiff or Spook, both written by Mary Roach, but she spoke with a surgeon that wanted to talk to someone who have had out-of-body experiences. To the point he set up a screen that could only be seen from above the surgery table. If you'd been floating around up there, you'd see a screen with a star or heart or something. An item that is easy to identity, and would be easy to ask a person if they remember seeing on where they did. I don't think he was able to confirm it at time of writing, but thought it was a neat way to try to see what is up with those reports. So many people have described seeing their own surgery, etc., and would be cool to confirm it somehow. Was hit by a car when I was 5 years old, ended up with toxic shock syndrome and went into a coma for 4 months. I just remember some very weird dreams, which I can still recall vividly 26 years later. Someone mentioned something about visiting another realm, and that's pretty close to the mark. What happened in these dreams? These were fucking awesome. Thank you. Except Tommy, that BCH wasn't invited. In 2016 I was in a coma from the 31st of March to the 5th of May, then half awake for another month after that. It was like the longest scariest dream of my life. I was medically induced by a fentanyl drip for about a week at first, and let me tell you, fentanyl is a demon. Wacky dreams about fighting corrupt hospital officials. So my brain knew where I was. They didn't think I'd ever talk or walk again. But in the hospital bed I laughed at an episode of that 70s show and inclined every day after, putting me at about 85% health overall these days. But pretty much an average guy. Oh, it was a head injury. Had a seizure in the bathroom that made me fall onto the sink. Similar experience. Drip and all. But I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. I dreamed hallucinated that my younger sister was dead, cut in half, and they were making me lay on her severed body. When I woke up, the first thing I asked was how she died, and everyone looked at me like I was crazy. There were actually many times I believed they put a random dead body in my bed. Another one I had was about the nurses encasing me in concrete. I was paralyzed, so that's just how my brain processed it. I was aware of people talking to me and being with me. I just couldn't communicate, and my brain processed everything in this weird dream world. But I've never thought it was a good idea to keep people in shallow drug comas like that. Either keep them completely blackout asleep or keep them awake. I've heard medical personnel say they induce shallow comas to make being on ventilators less traumatic and to help them get through intense pain. I get the logic, but it just seems like forcing someone to trip balls for days or weeks on end is cruel. There's so many cases of people suffering flashbacks and PTSD from the violent hallucinations they suffered during the experience. Join our community Discord, link in description. When I was in 5th grade I fell out of a tree and bonged my head pretty well. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital. For me, the experience is easily summarized in 3 parts. When I fell, I blacked out before I hit the ground. Or at least that is where memory fades. And fades is really the best word. It was as if my consciousness was drained away and then blackness and nothingness. It was as if my body knew how badly it was going to hurt, and so it shut down. I have very vague memories while in the coma of hearing my dad reading a book, or my mom telling me that she knew I would pull through, or of a tube in my nose. But these were always super fuzzy moments and I never was conscious during them. It was more like a half second of being aware of one particular thing. The way the tube felt being taped against my arm and wishing I could reach out and move it, and then back into the nothingness. I think that I was somewhat aware of the fact that I was a little more aware each time that this happened, but honestly I am not certain of even that much. Waking up was sudden. So sudden. I was in blackness. Had a moment of awareness. Like my neck hurts, and then the pain was magnitudes higher. No longer a distant perception, but something that I was actively conscious of. Waking up was the most painful moment of my life, and I just started crying and then couldn't even cry, it hurt so bad. I think that had more to do with injuries sustained to my neck and head than the coma. But that is what it was like. After an hour my body was used to the pain and I was totally normal, albeit very weak, hungry, and thirsty. I didn't have anything near as traumatic, but I did have a moment when I was a kid on a swing that was going out of control. So I tried to stop myself with my foot against the tree. I still don't remember ever hitting the tree. Just the moments when I thought what I was doing would help. A big black scene missing, and then waking up on the ground holding my foot as it bled everywhere. Same happened to me. Friend and I were training for a 3-legged race, and like dumb as 9-year-olds we just tied the ends of the rope to our ankles and run around. Naturally, my friend stopped as I was running. I ran out to the end of the line and my foot got yanked out from under me. I remember falling, but I don't remember hitting the ground. My next memory is my friend standing over me shitting herself and me going, OMG, I blacked out, that's awesome. r/angry upvote. I've tried to explain it a few times, but honestly it's life changing. It's one of those experiences that are almost impossible to explain, but you're a different person afterwards. Not just because of the brain damage on my part, or the physical therapy you need to learn basic motor functions. It's like visiting another realm of reality. Like a different person afterwards. The thoughts in my head have always been a voice, my words. When I woke up the voice was different somehow. I can't describe it now, but I knew it for certain right then. Like WTF is going on different. Not subtle. Yes, it changed who I am. It's like visiting another realm of reality. The Russians made like a movie about like going in coma and visiting another realm where the time moves slower, like 1 out of 100 of real time. I recommend to watch, it's really cool. I was in one for like 2 weeks. I would not wish it on anyone. For me, I was in a long dream. I did realize I was asleep for a long time. I was still able to feel and hear, which was interpreted into my dream. Example, my hands were restrained so I would not pull out any tubes, and my dream was that I was being held in a prison. My brother was in a coma. He doesn't remember the weeks, months leading up his accident or the months following his waking. He had a very severe traumatic brain injury. Righto. I was in coma because I fell 15 meter and broke nearly all of the bones in my back, and it was horrible. When I woke up, I thought the nurses were torturing me and that I need to escape. I started hallucinating a lot and couldn't even understand that I am in hospital. The biggest problem were my dreams. I thought I was a time traveler or some kind of god. I thought I was shot by the police and other shit. I still have flashbacks to this day and it is no fun. But I am getting therapy to deal with it. And I could watch show in my dreams, so yeah, it was confusing and horrible at the same time. 0/10 would not do again. What kind of O? Lesbian O. Edit. THX for the award. This is my first and it actually means a lot to me, so thank you. Only the effing best. Not my story, but on a previous post asking this question, there was a guy who talked about having a whole second life while in his coma. He talked about vivid memories of his family and friends. He met a woman and they had kids together. Then one day he was sitting in his lounge and started staring at this lamp. There was something off about it, but he couldn't tell what. He stared at it and kept staring all throughout the night. Then he realized the lamp wasn't real. Suddenly he started recalling his real life and woke up from his coma. He said that to this day he still grieves the loss of his family from the coma. I believe he said he sometimes sees his coma children in his dreams. It was really interesting and depressing. If anyone can find that comment, let me know. Edit. I'm grateful that Redditors seem to have the uncanny ability to dig up comments that are over 8 years old. Turns out in this instance, it wasn't a coma, and the guy was just out cold for however many minutes. Still a crazy story. To all you reading the story for the first time, I apologize for your collective existential crises. I remember reading that one, and, as someone with a wife and kids, I found it terrifying. I think about it every couple months or so. Right? The idea that I could wake up with a decade of my life or more just being fake, I don't think I could deal with it if that was the truth. Not after all that's happened. The painful battle to bring my partner to the UK. I think if that happened, I'd just go on a quest to the US to try and find her, because I wouldn't be able to deal with her not existing. Reddit.com link and UTM medium equals IOSAP and UTM name equals IRSMF. Not a coma, but I'll just classify this as sleeping in odd places, not on purpose. I blacked out for quite a bit of time. Due to heat stroke. Apparently I was just passed out on the ground. I woke up feeling a warm tingling sensation. I honestly thought I was just in bed. But no, I was in the middle of a shopping center with my brother standing over me laughing. Your brother sucks. Heat stroke can kill you. So can brothers. This is true. A kid I went to middle school with spent 5 months in a medically induced coma waiting for a new heart. He said that in dream time it was equivalent to several years during which he could fly and was stronger, but also had to fight clowns with chainsaws. He was aware that he was in a coma but couldn't really do anything about it, obviously. Interestingly enough, there was a point in this dream where he was tasked with doing something that was literally impossible and he was somehow able to do it. In the real world, I believe medical professionals at one point said it was literally impossible for him to recover. I'm not sure what health complications were happening during this time, or if this was pre or post transplant. The mind's quite good at keeping us occupied. I know this will get buried, but I'll post my experience anyway. I went to the hospital with renal failure and a pulse ox reading of 32. I remember the nurse saying my pee looked like root beer, and when she stabbed my arm to give me an IV, all she said was "oh." My arm got really warm and my dad moved my head so I wouldn't see how much blood was coming out. Next thing I know, I'm in a hospital bed, tearing through the desert at 60 plus mph. Nothing but me and a hospital bed. No motor. Nothing. Just cruising through the desert. I'd see all sorts of weird things. Most specifically was Ronald McDonald. I saw him all the time. Then my hospital bed would come to a screeching halt and I'd be in the living room of someone I knew. A grandma. Good friends. Former coaches. Basically any living room I had spent time in with someone I cared about. The weird thing was the living rooms were always 3-walled. One wall was missing and beyond that wall was a barren desert. We would talk for a while about God knows what. Then I'd be pulled back into the desert cruising at 60 miles per hour again. It happened over and over again. Sometimes the same living rooms would reappear, but almost all of them were unique. When I came out of the coma, everyone kept commenting how good my hair looked. I couldn't figure out why they kept saying that, so I finally asked my mom how long I had been asleep. She said 13 days. And I had cards and flowers from all these people whose living rooms I'd been visiting in my coma. It was surreal and I definitely can't explain it. Especially since most of the cards came from people who weren't allowed to visit me in intensive care and were sending well wishes in writing, not in person. Reposting from another thread, I talked about it. 2 weeks induced because of swine flu. During this time Oprah announced she was ending the Oprah Winfrey Show. I was very upset to learn this after the fact. Mostly because the TV running in my room plus the drugs they gave me to keep me under gave the most cinematic dreams I've ever experienced. Somehow the news of Oprah retiring filtered into my brain as dreaming about saving the whales with her in a submerged Chicago. We had champagne brunch. It was excellent. I was also a superhero who could fly and fought my enemies on the rims of volcanoes. And then I woke up and not only could I not fly, but my buddy Oprah had betrayed me into retirement. I was crushed. I got in a dirt bike accident during the summer between grade 8 and 9. I don't remember much about the day or two before, just kind of flashbacks like a dream. I woke up in the hospital a day or so later. To me it was like sleeping. All of a sudden I woke up. I did have some memory loss though, which lasted for a couple of hours. This memory loss was different than just not remembering the day or so before. I woke up and although I knew my parents and everything, I didn't remember the previous few years of school, like graduating from grade 8. It was a full-on panic attack. Though I was going to have to repeat a couple grades and then essentially I was mentally handicapped. This was in the 80s, so I didn't use that exact term. Everything did come back, but that hour after waking up still haunts me. Ah yes, school. The most scary thing to repeat. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.